Hello and welcome to the Nomiki Show. I am Nomiki Konst. We are 69 days away from inauguration, or not. Even after all we have been through, I am just amazed and horrified by Donald Trump's willingness to destroy anything in front of him. First, he undercut the credibility of journalism. Then he went after the independence of the courts. He misused the military, scoffed at science, ridiculed academics, and demonized the left, of course. But what he is doing right now is attacking the process this country was built on. We elect our leaders when they are done with their term of office, or when we are done with them and vote them out, they go. They peacefully hand over the power to the next person in the chain of democratic government that goes all the way back to George Washington. This idea is so fundamental, and it was so radical in its day that Lin-Manuel Miranda described it in Hamilton. These are Miranda's words. They say George Washington's yielding his power and stepping away. Is that true? I wasn't aware that was something a person could do. That was, of course, in response to the king. That was his statement in Hamilton. Okay, I'm sure I can work on my rapping, of course, but just to make it very clear, this is very important. Here we are 230 years later, and Donald Trump is denying the election results and refusing to step away. Sure, he has a right to ask for recounts or any other regular process to establish, as he says, that all legal votes were counted and none of the illegal ones, whatever that means. What he does not have a right to do is kick over the fundamental principles of our country on his way out the door. He is doing long-term damage that is much bigger than Trump himself. Those in his party who are letting him do this should be ashamed of themselves, and they should be called out. Mitch McConnell knows better. Mike Pompeo is a history teacher. He certainly knows better. This election is over. There is no evidence, none, not a zero of fraud or errors that could even possibly reverse the results in one state, let alone 3 or 4 that would be needed to undo Biden's victory. Yet the Trump attack on the American electoral system continues. Let me read you something, and I quote, "One potential strategy discussed by Mr. Trump's legal team would be attempting to get courts to delay vote certification in critical states, potentially positioning Republican-controlled legislatures to appoint pro-Trump electors who could swing the Electoral College in his favor." End quote. Where did I read this? It wasn't in Jacobin or The Nation. I read it in a critique against Trump and his actions in the Republican Party in today's Wall Street Journal. Third paragraph of a front page news story. The Wall Street Journal is warning us there is madness in the White House, that Trump's team is considering wildly destructive ideas. Well, when the Wall Street Journal sounds the alarm, you know it's time to shut this thing down. Now, maybe Trump won't go that far. Maybe Trump is just trying to keep the right energized for the Georgia voting in January for the runoff, the Senate runoff. Or maybe he is pandering to his base, so they will follow him from politics to his secret TV network where he can actually do reality TV and, what he's good at. I have no idea, and we cannot sit around waiting to find out. It is all equally outrageous. The legitimacy of the American electoral system is not a tool to boost turnout in Georgia. We can't set the precedent for this in the future. Try phone banking instead for Georgia. That might work, Republicans. And we surely cannot destroy the legitimacy of American elections as an instrument for media marketing. But of course, this has been the problem all along. Donald Trump has no regard and barely an awareness of what institutions mean. They are just obstacles to his goals, especially if those institutions are there to protect the basic tenets of our democracy. The rest of the Republican Party has been just way too craven or too frightened to stop him. Well, I have a message to both parties, Democrats too. You are each at a crossroads. What you do in the next few weeks and even days will shape who you are for a long time. The Democrats know what the country needs and what the people want, an economically just system. That means you have to pick between your corporate seducers and a progressive political party. You know which side I'm on. But also read the room. To continue to side with corporate cronies and banks and the military-industrial complex right now, come on, man. And Republicans, you have an equally important decision. Your party has always been a defender of our institutions, especially the crusty ones that need to be gutted, often defending them as an excuse to hold back change. But we all agree those institutions matter and that without them, we descend into autocracy. We, as progressives, believe in government. So, Republicans, are you going to keep relying on dirty tricks to win? And those beloved institutions of yours dismantle as a result of these dirty tricks? Your Faustian bargain with the devil, with the yellow hair, is now about to destroy what you have so long defended. The Republicans' own lawyers argued that elections have to end. They have to have it end. Well, this one is well over, and your side, Republicans, lost the top job, although there are plenty of down ballot races we would like to reverse on our side. We are headed to a very dangerous place where elections don't mean anything if someone, you, me, the cat in a hat, I don't know, if we don't like the outcome. But if elections don't mean anything, what kind of lowercase d democracy do we have? The election is over, and the rebuilding of this country needs to start. We have an excellent show today. We have Thomas Frank. He is here for the entire show. We're going to talk about his favorite restaurants. Now, we're going to talk about the future of the Democratic Party and the fall of the Democratic Party. But first, here are the news stories at the top of my feed. On Tuesday, the Senate Appropriations Committee called for almost $700 billion in funding to military expenses. But at the same time, Senate Republicans are proposing cuts to funding for an OSHA training grant program. This program is responsible for funding organizations that train workers and employees, quote, on the recognition, avoidance, and prevention of safety and health hazards in their workplaces, end quote. In other words, the party that claims to revere American values of freedom and justice is going to make it easier, not harder, for American lives to be put in danger in the workplace. We already know that the GOP are hypocrites and that their party strategy is guided by profit motive. This just puts their war on the working class in plainer terms. Okay, Biden's administration is ramping up its transition, which we have covered, which includes the creation of a task force to address the coronavirus outbreak. As Trump clings to power, he continues to reject any kind of meaningful action to support and protect the American people. Biden has been democratically elected, meaning that it is Trump's responsibility to acknowledge the will of the people and comply with the transition process. But as a recent piece for Common Dreams points out, Trump's rejection of the election outcome is also endangering a strong government response to COVID-19. ICU beds in Tulsa, Oklahoma are full right now. The U.S. is reporting unprecedented COVID infection numbers, and our current president is determined to keep full attention on his authoritarian power grab. Not to mention the chair of the task force on coronavirus is on vacation. Mike Pence, our sitting vice president in charge of this crisis for the next few months at least, is on vacation as the U.S. reaches record COVID rates. And that is the state of the country today. All right, guys, make sure to smash that like button. If you are not already on, if you haven't subscribed on our YouTube, make sure to click the subscribe button and the little bell to know when we go live with important breaking news. Little rants every once in a while. I just wake up and I say in the middle of the night, I'll take a nap and I'll wake up. So I'm going to do a rant now. So make sure to do that. And if you are not already, please join us on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for as low as $5 a month. That's a cold brew, as I always say, because every morning I get a cold brew because I'm addicted to caffeine and nothing but a cold brew will help me, sometimes a nitro. And those things are like $6 each. $6 each. So I would be happy to buy another, instead of buying another cold brew, I can't give up a cold brew. I choose to help out my fellow independent media journalists and hosts out there because corporate media is doing all it can to eliminate our voices from cable news. When we get on there, we're spicy. It's just kind of how it works. But luckily, there's independent media. So if you can, please join us at patreon.com/The Nomiki Show. We will be back after a quick break with Thomas Frank to talk about the Democratic Party. There's a lot to talk about, the history, the future, what's going on right now. Do we even have a Democratic Party? Paging Tom Perez, are you still there? All right, we'll be right back. Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Nomiki Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers. I am so addicted to cold brew that I just grabbed one. This is ridiculous. We're just talking about cold brew, and I was like, oh, I have one right here. Man, okay. This is a week where I lost it when it came to the Democratic Party. I mean, I have spent a good part of my adult life, I wouldn't say professional life because it was never professional. I was never paid to do that. Well, maybe my first job was working on reforming the Democratic Party. And part of the reason is the down ballot races. What we as progressives were frustrated about, and I think Democrats too, was the down ballot losses in a year that was supposed to be ours, right? And to me, the all fingers point to the Democratic Party, and there's really no way around it because you need that ballot line. You need to have a Democratic Party. You need to have that, the caucus it exists. It's just what we're dealt with. So I almost lost my mind, and I thought I would like to dedicate an entire show to reminding folks how Democrats got here and where they might be going and what's happened in the last few years. And there was no better person to discuss this with than the one and only Thomas Frank. He is the author of The People Know, A Brief History of Anti-Populism, and of course, Listen Liberal, or Whatever Happened to the Party of the People. And famously, we all know What's the Matter with Kansas, How Conservatives Won the Heart of America. All of those things describe what happened last Tuesday. All of your titles. Thomas Frank, welcome to the show.
Naomi, I don't know how I'm going to live up to that. But thank you. That's very nice. No, you said listen, that was very nice of you. And I'm going to try to, I'll do my best to try to, to walk you through the disaster that is the Democratic Party. And, you're asking the same question that everybody's asking, what the hell happened to the repudiation of Donald Trump? And I think in my lifetime, there have been, a number of presidents that, that showed their incompetence in office. I'm not trying to be tendentious or partisan here, but I think of Jimmy Carter, I think of George Bush Sr., I think of George Bush Jr., and all of them the public really turned against them. Richard Nixon. Oh my God. The public hated these people. They didn't stay loyal to them. Once they had shown what a disaster their leadership was. And that didn't happen with this guy, with Trump the other day. And that is mighty peculiar. And it's a big question. It's going to take He lost. But you were mentioning the down ballot races. Yeah, I mean he lost, but a big part of his base remained loyal to him. I guess enough people flipped so that enough people came out and voted so that he's not going to be president any longer. No matter what he says or tries, he's done, and that is a welcome relief. But it is remarkable that he wasn't repudiated in the manner of some of those other people that I just mentioned. And this is part of a larger story, which is the way I've been putting it for the last year or so is that the Democratic Party has been running a 30-year experiment to sort of see what it looks like when you have a two-party system. It's basically locked in by law. We can't get out of it. We can't run an outside challenge to these guys. And within that system, what happens when the party that is on the left decides it doesn't want to be a left party anymore, a traditional left party, and it wants to be something else? Can
I just ask you real quick, what would a traditional left party look like? Because for those of us who are in their 30s, we've never seen one before in America.
I know, you have to read about it in books. I'm so sorry. It would be focused on, it would have a name like Labor Party or Social Democrat,
Right.
and it would be focused on the well-being of working class people, and it would probably say something like that explicitly. Working class people. The Democratic Party used to say they were never, they usually shied away from that term. They would say middle class. That was always the term of art. That was the sort of,
But that doesn't exist anymore. You can't say
right.
that.
That's the euphemism, right? That was the euphemism, and you can't. Well, you look at their convention. I think I'm the only journalist left in America that I watched both parties' conventions, like all of them, and took notes and then wrote an essay about it. I had to get it published in France. There's nobody in this country's interested anymore. But if you watch the Democratic convention, the convention of the Party of the People, the party of Franklin Roosevelt and Harry Truman and the AFL-CIO, they barely mentioned the middle class in all of their convention. And you watch the Republican convention, and oh my God, they're all over it. They won't shut up about it. They are so anxious to grab that market niche that the Democrats have abandoned. But you ask yourself, so I think this is, in some ways, this is the guiding question of and you talked about your career reforming the Democratic Party, my career sort of like mocking people in politics. And this is the guiding theme of the whole thing. It's like we've had this 30-year experiment, and what does it look like when you have a middle-class society? So I'm considerably older than you. I was born in 1965, and America had a lot of problems then. Obviously the civil rights movement was protesting the, segregation in the South at the time, but I didn't live in the South. I was born in the state of Kansas. And this is the same year as the Vietnam War got going. So you could see the sort of that old, world was coming to an end. But the world that I was born into was, at least for white people in the North, we were a social democracy. This middle-class society was something real. People could afford healthcare. They could afford education. Even if you were a blue-collar worker, you had a pretty good standard of living. And I say white people, but there were a lot of Black people in the North who were also part of this system, union members and stuff like that. And that whole society is gone. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them is that the Republicans have moved so far to the right, all the tax cuts, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But all of that would have been temporary, the Reagan Revolution and et cetera, if the Democrats had remained true to who they had always been and had pushed back and had fought back over the years. And they decided at some point not to do that anymore, that they were not interested in defending that world. They wanted to be something different. So we're living in I hold them responsible for the world that I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I think you're right. I mean, this is exactly it. It's, I think like a few years ago, well, I know a few years ago, saying these things out loud, which you've been doing for years, would get you in a lot of trouble in the Democratic Party. And it became
they don't invite me to their things anymore. I don't
go on
get
MSNBC.
to their games.
I didn't get my CNN contract. All this stuff. Like we've got
I lost my pundit card. I have to go to France or England if I want to, do this stuff anymore.
I'm
Australia.
Sorry, you're a pundit here. Listen.
Yeah.
But it's I mean, I remember I went on air in the Democratic primary, and I'll never forget this. I was on CNN and I was debating the head of the super PAC that was backing Hillary Clinton. And I like going through campaign finance filings, and I was reading the filings and I was like, there's something really fishy here. Like
you were reading them on the air?
No. I mean,
how
before I went
dare
on air.
you? No, Miki, democracy dies in that kind of darkness, don't you?
It is a dark place to read campaign filings. But I said something, I called him out on air, the PAC, for moving money sort of back and forth from the Democratic Party into the Hillary Clinton campaign. And it was all legal, but it was just a form of like kind of open money movement. I won't use the actual word because I could get in trouble. So I got off air, and my first job, really like my first political job, like where I was paid, was working for YDA, was the Young Democrats. And I was an organizer in Arizona back when YDA was part of the DNC, and they believed in this so-called 50-state strategy, and they so much so that they had young people organizing. And we won that year in 2006. We won the House back. Harry Mitchell became the congressman that was elected. We organized in that district. So one of the people that I had been part of YDA with, posted something on Facebook saying, "Who is this Nomiki woman? She is so disloyal. Is she a Republican plant? What is she saying on CNN right now?
Oh my God.
She is the way." And then it was
you got canceled. You got canceled.
Mm-hmm. It was this flood of commentary from these, like, I think a lot of these people have shifted since then because it's just been exposed so much. But what I said on air wasn't anything that people aren't saying right now, but it was just like you've been saying it for years. You couldn't do it. You couldn't do it. You couldn't reveal that the Clintons were not good Democrats.
But wait, it's not, there's nothing secret about it. And I voted for Hillary Clinton. I actually, I thought she'd be a good president. I was very open about that at the time, but I'm still critical. That doesn't mean I'm not, I owe my loyalty not to a political party, but to ideas and to learning and to understanding. That's what my life is about. It's not about serving. I mean, they don't pay me. I'm not.
No, but that's what I'm saying. Is it's like there's two things that have happened simultaneously. You've this party that's been created, right? Which I want to go to that moment in a few seconds. It's a party that kind of, came out of the late 70s, Carter era into the early 80s, and this neoliberal experiment in the Democratic Party. Simultaneously, it doesn't allow dissent internally. I mean, what kind of Democratic
won,
Party are you?
Yeah, I know. And they won. And it is funny because they themselves were dissenters back in the day. But it's this 30-year experiment, and it's been disastrous, I think, in almost any way you look at it. By the way, to go back to Listen Liberal, my book about the Democratic Party, the research for it, I've actually got it right here. The research for it, I was just going over this the other day. It's all out in the open. It's not like I was, there's no skullduggery. I had to do a little bit of historical digging, but it's all there in magazines in the library. The Democratic Leadership Council, which was the group that shifted the Democrats to the right, they had a House magazine. You can look it up as easily as I did. Before them, this group called the Neoliberals. They actually called themselves that, by the way.
The organization called the Neoliberals.
Yeah, they put out anthologies of their writing. They're proud of it. It's not like a
collector's edition.
Oh no! I
want to light it on fire and say, "Burn the books."
No. These are all readily available at the library or on Amazon. You buy them secondhand. There's nothing secret about this. It really happened. They were out in the open. What's the most damning of all the Democratic books? I always blank on the title. It was written by a lobbyist. I think he was a lobbyist for the Saudi Arabian government. Back in the 60s or the early 70s. Oh, what is it called? Damn it. Anyhow, it's like,
so
he was proud of it. He wrote a book, and the research is easy to do. There's no secret about this. These people said at some point in the 70s, we don't want to be a party of working class organizations anymore. You know how I was just describing what a real party of the traditional party of the left looks like. And they said, we don't want to be that anymore. And by the way, we were first in this country, this sort of what's now called the third way. That was here. We invented that. And these people organized, and they, after every election, they would blame what they called the liberals, the sort of traditional New Deal Democrats. They would blame them for the loss, whatever it was. They got the loss, and the neoliberals, the New Democrats got the win. Yeah, they always did this. Every election they did this.
Oh my God.
You didn't know this? Oh yeah, this is
all your
part
fault.
of it.
Medicare for all.
It's fun. This is part of the story. So every day after the election would be over, and they'd go on TV and be like, Walter Mondale lost because he's too liberal. Michael Dukakis, who is as neoliberal as it's possible to be, he loses, and so they go on to be like, he was too liberal. Nomi, he was a.
Well, I remember.
It's always about the New Deal. There's actually a historian of the New Deal who was writing about the New Deal in these days, in the 80s and the 90s. And he got so, Well, he wrote a book that's just about all the times people said that the New Deal was dying or needed to die. The whole book is filled with these remarks. And you know, again, this is right out in the open. You can go check it out at the library. It is hysterical. You know, like Gary Hart in the 70s when he was coming up. His standard issue stump speech would be like denouncing the New Deal, saying the New Deal is over. You know, we have to have a new vision. And he called
His
those
vision
people.
Was great.
He called those people. He called those people Eleanor Roosevelt Democrats.
Whoa!
I know, isn't that mean? That's what he would call people.
Gary
like
Hart, a sexist. Who would have thought?
I know, and they called him an Atari Democrat. That was the cool thing, to be an Atari Democrat, because you were like in with the, you know,
it's like the
information age.
Early technocrats.
Well, you understood Silicon Valley and do. And,
Atari is the game for kids out there.
Yeah, that's right. I used to have
Atari.
one. I'd come home from school. I was a little latchkey kid, and I'd come home
from
school, and I'd be playing with that damn thing.
Gary Hart ran for president, and Google Gary Hart
famously, had one of the first like modern sex scandals where there wasn't even really any sex involved.
No, there wasn't. He was on a boat. It's a great story. We're not going to talk about it now, but like Google it if you have a chance. And it's and he was supposedly going to be the one that was going to win.
Oh well, yeah, he had everything going for him, all the hot ideas, and you know, he was young, and you know, so anyhow,
so let's we're going to take a break in just a second, a really quick break, but what I want to talk about specifically is why there was this shift. I mean, you've documented this so well in Listen Liberal. So, I mean, I remember Elaine Kmark, who is from the Brookings Institution.
She's one of the sort of masterminds of all this.
Exactly. So I was on the Unity Reform Commission with her, and she would just matter of fact, we need super delegates. Well, because people don't know, like we need the elders to decide.
They're not fond of democracy. These people.
She's not fond of democracy. The words that were coming out of her mouth, it was like, how out of touch are you that you don't even have code for this? You're just saying it. And then the second thing she said over and over, and I remember I responded, and I've said this a few times before, she says, well, we can't have another McGovern. We can't have another McGovern map, meaning his horrible loss. And I
72, right. Well, and why? Because he was too liberal. Actually, McGovern was basically one of them. He was
what
they called a new politics guy.
When I said to her, I said, what do you think the Hillary Clinton map was? What do you think? If that was not our McGovern moment, then what is our McGovern moment?
Yeah.
Seriously, like that's why we were on the Reform Commission, was we were trying to figure out how not to do it again. And she just looked at us like we were going to create this. I'm like, you're get out of Harvard, like get out.
Yeah, but that's that's part of the story. I don't want to get too deep in the weeds here and talk about the different personalities, but they were all together. They were all together in the 80s and 90s. What was it called? The Democratic Leadership Council. This is Bill Clinton was their sort of favorite politician. He was the guy that they wanted to run him for president. Al Gore was part of that group. Among Barack Obama was not, but he later sort of
he's too young.
He became an honorary one, Yeah. But Joe Biden definitely was part of that bunch, And
let's go to a quick break real quick, and then let's go back to that, because I would love to hear a little bit more about Joe Biden's history. We'll be back in just like one quick second with Thomas Frank.
Uh-oh.
Thanks for watching and listening to The Nomiki Show. But remember to click like and subscribe on YouTube, and please share on social media. If you're not already a patron, please join us for as low as $5 a month on patreon.com/The Show for early and special content. That investment makes a huge difference. We are not corporate media raking in the dough. It's really you guys that are keeping us going. So please consider being a patron. And to our current patrons, thank you so much. We are incredibly grateful to you. We also now have swag. So check us out on thenomikishow.com to get your mugs, your totes, and your stickers. Thomas, welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Nomiki Show. I just have to share a message before we do our shout outs later. My mother texted me during this break and she says, "Oh my God, I love Thomas Frank." So
that's nice of her. So this is the one I was trying to think of. Frederick Dutton, Changing Sources of Power. So this is 1971. And he was behind what was called the McGovern Commission. And the idea there was to shift the Democratic Party away from organized labor and towards, highly educated, the college kids who were protesting the Vietnam War. And they actually succeeded. And that was what led to George McGovern's staggering loss in 1972. He only won one state, remember, Massachusetts and the District of Columbia. And what's funny is that the Democrats have never looked back. They've never said, well, that was a bad idea. We should.
Oh, okay. So this is like the ultimate question, though. I would love to think that this is just a conspiracy theory, but having been on these commissions,
this is all up in the open.
No. I mean, what I'm saying specifically, that they don't want to win. Like, it's one thing that they have an agenda. I was on these commissions, and you have to be. I don't know if it's like a Romanov, like I'm in a castle and like I can't understand what's going out in the working class out there, and they're coming to like burn down the castle, or if. I mean, when you wrote about the Koch brothers, for instance, like their involvement, their involvement in the DLC, like I looked at that and I just said, and then how do you think that you're going to win nationally when you take all the money away from the state parties after the shellacking? Shouldn't have you said that? Oh, maybe I should like fund the state parties again.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just like.
So I think that they do want to win, but they want to win on their terms, and what that means is that they want to win without doing anything differently. By the way, this is a consistent sort of, for people who watch the two parties, the Republicans are kind of endlessly dynamic. I mean, we can look at Trump. I almost said Ronald Reagan. Look at Trump, what he's doing right now at this moment. They're always pushing the envelope. He's already like basically planning his comeback in 2024. And he's trying to lay the groundwork for that, trying to make a Biden look, delegitimate Biden, do whatever it is that he's doing. They're forever doing this. And the Democrats are extremely complacent. I mean, even the way they talk to you is extremely complacent. They can never look you in the eye, et cetera, et cetera. It's always like, take it easy. Everything's going to be fine, and it's just endlessly frustrating. I think they want to win, but they want to win on their terms. What they don't want to do is actually, they don't want to be the party of working people for a lot of different reasons. One is they don't believe in it. Because what they believe in is this sort of technocratic dream that you and I have talked about before, where society is run by affluent white collar professionals in the suburbs, and that's the group that we need to be part of because they're so enlightened and they're so morally good. One of the things, Nomiki, we should talk about this later. I am so sick of goodness. I'm here in Bethesda, Maryland.
Decency. What's decent, Joe Biden? So maybe we should shut down the concentration camps at the border. That would be really decent. Another thing that'd be really decent would be if
what I mean is
the minimum wage, healthcare for all.
The moral self-regard of these people, the moral narcissism of these people, they are so goddamn virtuous. When I was at Hillary's convention, which I guess is the last convention that they actually had in an auditorium, and I counted the number of videos they showed in which people were moved to tears, like people on the screen, because someone is so goddamn good. And it's like you're overdosing on virtue all the time. They're too goddamn good, but they never want to actually do anything. Anyhow, so to get back to what we started with, we've been running a 30-year experiment in this country to see what it looks like when a middle-class society, when you don't have a party of the left in a society like that. And we know the economic effects. Its inequality is completely and totally out of control. Monopoly is out of control. The rich are rich. Like, look at Silicon Valley. It's insane. And there's nobody.
You mean the transition team? The Silicon Valley took a break from Silicon Valley, and they're just running the transition.
Oh my God!
Team now.
I just got out cynicismed by Nomiki. So no, that is not what I meant. I meant, look at the power of Silicon Valley. They're surveilling us all the time. This is incredible.
Hi, Janet Napolitano. I know you see us on Zoom right now. We can go on the road.
But
sorry, I don't mean
those
to
things happen. But you also have, when the party of the left abandons, talking about the middle class, talking about the working people, talking about, building a society for them, which Roosevelt, Lyndon Johnson, that's what it was. That's what the Democrats were. When you abandon that, you basically leave the high road open to the right to appeal to those very same people. That is, after all, this is the part where I'm really going to really bust some knowledge on you, Nomi. There's more working class people than there are rich people.
Oh my God.
Did you know this?
so you mean
I don't know if you're aware of this.
Haven't become little mini robots for some.
I don't know if you're aware of this,
but they're not all in unions. That's I think.
That's right. No, they're fragmented in 100 different ways. So you have the white working class, you have the black working class, you have union members, you have non-union members, you have women, you have men. There's all sorts of different ways. People that work in this industry, people that work in that one. There's all kinds of different ways of dividing these people up. But when you turn your backs on them as a whole, which the Democrats have done, and say, well, we're going to appeal to these people over here, we're going to appeal to these voters by a different route and these voters by a different route, but we're not going to talk about them as working people altogether. Forget that. We're done with that.
And then pit them against each other too. I mean, that's one of the craziest things.
you leave the way open for. To make a long story short, you leave the way open for Trumpism. So Trump is going around calling the Republicans a workers' party, and you look at Pat Buchanan, who's sort of one of the pioneers of this approach. He is overjoyed by the results last week. He's like, "Look at this. The Republicans are actually expanding their outreach to working class people away from just white working class people to now." You've got all of these Latinos who voted for Trump. This is kind of remarkable. I didn't expect that. Trump did better than any Republican for a long time among the black electorate, which also was a huge surprise to me. I didn't think that would happen. Well, it's happening. It's happening.
It's not like these tactics are new, right? I mean, they're done by the Republicans. They're done by the Democrats, even in the DNC itself. I can't tell you how many, especially in the last 5 years, how many DNC meetings I've gone to where there's some sort of controversial, it shouldn't be controversial at all, item like banning conflicts of interest, for instance, or like super delegates.
Well, that is controversial.
Oh my God, right? Yeah. And they will find a group, usually it's usually a Black-led group of folks to say, this is racist. And it's like, why is banning conflicts of interest racist? And of course it's not. And there are plenty of people who are, dispel that. But they use identity as a weapon against anything that might create more democracy, accountability, oversight within the party, even in the party structure. And then they also use Barack Obama.
Is, by the way, can I tell you that? I mean, that's something that's highly ironic. They used to use it the other way around. So in the Bill Clinton days, the early days of the Democratic Leadership Council, the whole idea was you had to win Southern whites. And the way you're going to do that is through the opposite strategy. So Bill Clinton and welfare reform, it's
insane.
Welfare reform was a bid for the bigot vote. The whole idea then was that, we've lost the bigot vote. Democrats have, we got to reach out to the bigot
Bubba vote, because he was Bubba, right?
Yeah, but worse than that. I mean, welfare reform. You look at how it was sold. This is a monstrous deed, in my opinion. That and the crime bill of '94, which is the same deal. These are some of the worst things the Democratic Party has ever done. And it was done with entirely the opposite logic. And then, they'll use, and in truth, they will use any kind of rationale to defend what they want to do. I mean, that is Clintonism. If they'll use racism if they need to, and they'll use anti-racism if they need to. It's, that.
Right.
They want what they want, and they're going to use this as a tool to get it.
Depends on how you define sex. It's just, he's going to come up with whatever.
Wait, no, it's is. The word was is. How do you define is?
How do you define is? Okay, kids, go back to the 90s.
Yeah. By the way, here's Al Fromm's memoirs. He was a leader of the Democratic Leadership Council, and the book is called "The New Democrats and the Return to Power." And by return to power, he means the Bill Clinton administration, which is for him to this day, that is the great triumph. That's the great moment. Here's Gary Hart's memoir. Here you can see what he looked like. There he is. He
got a big smile. That was pre controversy, obviously.
Yeah, that was in the 80s. He was running against Walter Mondale in 84. Yeah, the controversy was in 88.
Yes. So I want to talk a little bit about this moment, because I'm kind of vacillating. I guess I was before the transition team was announced. I was sort of vacillating between, like, I just don't think that Joe Biden and this moment, given that we're in such, the economy is spiraling. It's like they can falsely inflate Wall Street all they want. They can whatever they're going to do. It's not going to solve the crisis of this moment, a crisis that's larger since the Great Depression prior to COVID, and now post COVID, he's just inheriting problems way bigger than I think 2008, 2009 under Obama, and as a result, I just feel like even because Joe Biden is like the last. He's like an early neoliberal. So he existed before the technocrats came in and turned you into a candidate. Like no one turned him into a candidate. There's something
very old fashioned about him. He's And I think that are you asking me for a ray of hope here? Because I'll do that. I can play that game.
I don't know about a ray of hope, but I've been fascinated. I'm like, okay, so he could take this moment seriously, partly because he has nothing to lose and he just wants his legacy to be strong as a president. And this is an FDR moment. And he's a Johnson. He's like a Johnson's, kind of guy.
He is. He spent his life in the Senate. He has He has the Lyndon Johnson magical power, where he can talk anybody into anything, or at least he used to have it. Yeah. I don't know if he still does. But then alternatively, okay. So here's my one thing that makes me feel like this moment's a little different. I looked at that transition team and I was like, oh, this is the Kamala Harris transition team. This is not the Obama third term. This is the Kamala Harris transition team. This is her brother-in-law. Well, her brother-in-law is the chair of the transition team, Uber lawyer. You look at the transition team; it's full of Silicon Valley, and of course, this is the Prop 22 guys. Isn't
the
that
Prop
great?
22 crowd? Did? Yeah,
can you believe they just did that? That was Democrats just did that.
Yes, Democrats, not just Democrats. Kamala Harris Democrats just did that. So, part of me was like, okay, we're going to have a new Democratic Party. We're going to have a new DNC because the neoliberal experiment failed. Like even the Financial Times said that.
Wait, they did? There was an
what's
extraordinary, like Tom Friedman is saying it, Paul Krugman is saying it. We are at a turning point. This is one of the things that makes me very I'm gratified. Because this is what I've been saying for 30 years.
Yeah, but they're going to get the credit, Thomas.
I don't care about that. The thing is that it's finally made its way through the punditariat, the pundit class, and they're all agreeing. So it's Biden can't go back to the neoliberal turn. He can't go back to. He can, but it'll be against, nobody believes it anymore. Like NAFTA style trade agreements, nobody thinks that's a good idea. What a bank deregulation, the other great triumph of Clintonism, nobody thinks that's a good idea anymore. So, by the way, if you go back and look at, the New Democrats and the return to power, if you look at what their great triumphs were, remember the Clinton administration, what were they? Welfare reform, disaster. Crime bill of 94, which Biden, by the way, had a big hand in writing.
Yep.
Disaster, utter catastrophe. You look at bank deregulation and deregulation of telecoms, disaster. The trade agreements, disaster. The balanced budget. Well, you can argue that one either way. I don't think it was a good idea. It's not something, but those were Clinton's. That's what he did. Those 5 things.
Let's not forget a really big one: ignoring Osama bin Laden, who was threatening the country during the Clinton administration and just being
I didn't know that.
Preoccupied. Oh yeah, it's been written about.
But I was going to say these are the things that Clinton admirers.
Terrorism. I mean, these 2 things that have just been haunting us for Clintonism and then the war on terror. These 2 things that have been haunting the party for the last 35 years.
Yeah,
or really last 20 years.
But look, all I'm saying is Biden can't go back to that. So I mean, he might do it anyways, right? I'm sure he can find some economist or professor from Harvard to tell him it's a good idea. But here's the deal. Yeah. If the number 1 priority for the new administration has to be COVID, the number 2 priority has to be draining the Trump swamp. He's got to figure out how to stop Trumpism. This movement has to stop. He has to cut the legs out from under it somehow. He has to do some strategic thinking, figure out how this thing happened and what the Democratic Party, what Joe Biden, can do, what is within his power to make sure it doesn't ever come back. And I'm here to tell you that the good news is that, being a good president, doing the things that you and I are just talking about, helping out working people, coming up with ways to actually make their lives better, that would also go a long way towards draining the Trump swamp and cutting the legs out from under Trumpism. If he were to reconsider this crap, like, don't do that, Joe Biden, go back the other way. Yeah. Remember what the Democrats used to be when you were young. And he does know. I mean, he does remember that. And by the way, just on Joe Biden has a terrible track record as a member of the U.S. Senate. He's responsible for a lot of the things that we're talking about. But I also know liberals here in Washington who really think he's a good guy, and they really think he's going to do the right thing. Like Bernie Sanders, among other, Bernie Sanders thinks that Biden has the potential to be another FDR.
Well, and
it is
like
possible.
FDR also, as Harvey K, who you were on with on our show last time.
I love that guy. He's the best.
He loves you too. He has said this, that FDR became FDR, and it was because of the pressure. Yeah.
It wasn't really clear what the New Deal. He had this slogan, the New Deal, in 1932. Gave a great speech about it at the Democratic Convention, but it was not clear to anyone what it entailed, other than it was a program to get us out of the Depression, but how and what was he going to do? And but by 1936, everybody could see it came together very quickly. But yeah, that is exactly right. And Biden can, I think, look, I don't want to, like a year from now, you're going to have me back and be like, Tom Frank, you told us Biden was going to be another FDR. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying he has the potential to hear us. Biden likes to, he has a kind of rapport with working class voters. He likes to speak in union halls. He likes to visit factories. He calls himself, middle class Joe. Yeah. There is an opening there.
And there's a difference between him and Obama. And I think this is something like, if we really want to understand where we stand in this, Obama had no allegiance to the Democrat, like meaning the party itself. Like Biden's a party man. Obama had no allegiance to unions because he didn't come out of them. And I think that's why he was able to have all these technocrats. I think Kamala Harris is very similar in that way. Yeah. So my concern is he going to be a Kamala Harris president stand-in, like runway to Kamala Harris? Or is he going to actually take advantage of this moment and really lean into his greater instincts? And I hope, talking to folks in Washington who've known him for years too, my hope is that he's just transactional, and that's why he was part of the crime bill, and
People
using that
say, I've had people
transaction.
tell me that he just did whatever the party, he was
Yeah,
he was a loyalist,
he
and
wasn't
now
like
he's
a neoliberal thinker.
right. And
In
now
other
that he's in
words,
charge, he gets to, unleash the inner liberal Joe Biden. Well, we're
I don't
going
know
to
about
find
that.
out, aren't we? Yeah, we're going to find out. I mean, who the hell knows? I mean, I don't want to get people's hopes up. I just want to point out that there's an opening for this. And, anything can happen in the next 4 years, and let's hope he does a great job. But I am not, now to go back to what I really think, I think he's going to be a weak president and going to get weaker. I mean, unless they pull off a miracle in Georgia next month and win both of those races.
Why do you think that's a miracle? You really think that there's no
Oh,
shot in
because
Georgia?
just because it's like two, isn't it? Two incumbents are up for, yeah, that's two incumbent Republicans are, they have the Dems have to get both of them.
You don't think that we're going to come up with like some great ads that's going to just
some great ads. But that's exactly it. No,
John Ossoff,
it's
man, his skin is just, I mean, his body is just a money funneling machine for the Democratic Party. It's like, how do I move more ad money through my body? And it's like a ventriloquist. I mean, he's like my age. I can't, like, are you kidding me? My age, I'm 36, guys. Pete Buttigieg is 2 years older than me.
Yeah.
Can you imagine this? Can you imagine the Democrats helping anybody on our side like that? And how, by the way, they would win if they invested in people like
us. Hey, as my friend Matt Stoller always says, consultants did real well this time around. The consultants were like, they cashed in. By the way, interesting little fact, we're talking about the two parties and these long-term shifts, how the Democrats have changed so much in the last 30 years. One of the interesting things is that they routinely now outraise and outspend Republicans. Routinely. I mean, when I was coming up, that never happened. I mean, Reagan outspent Mondale. I don't know what the ratio was, but it has to be 2 or 3 to 1. When I was doing my research for The People Know, Roosevelt just got crushingly outspent in 1936, but he won in one of the greatest landslides of all time. On and on and on. But now, Hillary massively outspent and outraised Donald Trump. And I'm sure when we have all the numbers in, it'll be clear that Biden did the same thing. And you also see this geographic flip that's going on. And this is the one that I'll give you the example that blows my mind. So 15, 16 years ago, I wrote What's the Matter with Kansas? And a lot of it is about the area that I grew up in, which is Johnson County, which is suburban Kansas City, and an affluent area, very highly educated. They love their schools. I went to the public schools there. They're excellent, or they were excellent at the time. And this is was the most Republican place, or one of the most Republican places in America. They went for Goldwater over Lyndon Johnson. It was that kind of area, and they were the adults that I knew. These were just intensely Republican people. A Democrat didn't have a chance there. They hadn't voted for a Democrat there since 1916, Woodrow Wilson, and that's when the county was rural. Okay, yeah, and they'd voted for every Republican.
Not even Truman. They wouldn't even vote for Truman.
I don't know. That's no. He's from Missouri. We hate those people.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. Anyhow, but here's the thing. So Biden won it. Biden won that county. So that county, I grew up in, the most Republican county in America, or was once. Biden just won it. And hell, Hillary flipped Orange County, California.
Yeah.
But
they were wealthier. I mean, those are different types of Republicans. Those aren't.
Well, yeah, right. No, these are highly educated people. These are people who believe in education, who are proud of their education. And this is who the Democratic Party, this is who they're trying to win. And they're actually succeeding at winning them. I mean, I'm here in Bethesda, Maryland, which is also this highly educated, very affluent area. It was Republican too. You have to go a little further back, like to the 1980s, but it was Republican. And I didn't see a single Trump yard sign in this neighborhood, in this area.
I think a similar thing is happening in Arizona too. When people ask about what is it about Arizona, and it's where I got my start, organizing. It's a different type of Republican. It's not. I mean, there are rural parts of Arizona. They're absolute Tea Partiers, without a doubt, like the Trumpy people.
Yeah.
But it's still very like Scottsdale, Arizona, and Paradise Valley, Arizona. Those are the red dots in Phoenix, but they're starting to get, those are purple. And even the wealthier part of Tucson, that was Martha McSally's seat, for instance, turned without a doubt Biden, like wasn't even a question. So it's interesting, like the technocrats are taking over. My concern though about this is we're going to look at this election cycle as some sort of like precedent, but it's really an anomaly in that the turnout was just so high. So if Democrats actually focused on turnout, actually focused on organizing across the country, actually focused on organizing Georgia, so that, what Stacey Abrams and the women in Georgia who've been organizing, voter outreach, it showed you that the states are actually more democratic than people think. And if there's turnout, then, in off cycles,
can I just throw in there that the turnout is two things: COVID, so people are sitting at home getting madder and madder and madder, and they can do their mail-in ballots, and so you've got an incredible turnout from that, and also Trump. People hate this guy, or alternately, people love this guy, and that's not going to happen, unless you have Trump, actually on the ballot in 2024. That's not going to repeat itself. Neither of those things is going to repeat itself. Let's hope. Nomi, I kind of want to wrap this up with a bow for you by returning to this idea of the affluent, white collar, wealthy suburban Democrat, and sort of remind you of one of the points that I made long ago in either, I think it was in Listen Liberal, but it might have been in an earlier book, that ultimately these people, their politics is utterly complacent. And what I mean by that is, like, Trump got them tax cut. They aren't really threatened by Trump. He cut their taxes. He did something really, he doesn't really threaten. He's a bore and he's a jerk and he's an asshole and, he's vulgar. And that offends them.
He embarrasses them.
Yeah. But at the end of the day, he didn't hurt them materially. Okay. And they, I've talked a lot about those yard signs that you see in affluent areas that try to list all the liberal causes. The ones I'm talking about? It's like, no human is illegal. Women's rights are human rights. Science is real, and they keep adding lines to them to try to incorporate, they want to incorporate every possible liberal.
And it ends with like, yes, queen.
No, it should, but it has no. I think the last line on it is now is like, water is life. I don't know what that means.
You're at Standing Rock, buddy.
Here's the thing: they don't say anything about labor. They don't say anything about work. They don't say anything about every human should have health care. Every job you should be able to make a living doing blue collar work. They don't say anything about that. And here's what I'm ultimately coming to, that these people don't really have they are all former Republicans, or a lot of them are anyways. They don't really have a problem with Republicans getting in office if it's a nice, polite Republican like George Bush Sr. and he cuts their taxes and something like that, because what they're in Democratic politics for is this. Remember, we were talking about the virtue earlier. This sense of righteousness. These are people who are doing extremely well in this economy. Neither party is threatening their material well-being. What the Democrats offer them is a kind of a way of being both rich and feeling really smug about it, feeling really good about it. They're not only richer than the people who work for them, they're morally superior.
That's right.
To the people who work for them, and so when the guy comes up to do their, to work on their yard or whatever, they're not only, they can pay him very little. It doesn't really matter because they're better people. And that's what the Democrats offer.
Tippers.
But here's the thing: that doesn't require winning an election, Nomi. That doesn't require electoral victory. And so you come back to the point that you made at the very start, that there's a kind of death-like complacency about this new Democratic Party that we've become, where winning elections is not the end of politics. Those stupid yard signs are.
Which is funny because they don't even want to fund yard signs anymore.
I call it the utopia of scolding. Yes. They're in a utopia already. This happy little beautiful suburban neighborhood where they have their wonderful lifestyle, and they get to scold the people lower in the hierarchy than themselves. It's incredibly satisfying, and it doesn't require winning elections.
Just to end this, I was talking to somebody who's I was just trying to figure out some electoral stuff, and somebody was working on a campaign this cycle who's not a progressive. And I was asking him some questions about the district they're working in, and somehow we got on the topic of Uber. And
It's my they know that I'm on. I don't know why they do this. And okay,
it's okay. We're about to wrap. And I heard this line about Uber, like, well, I don't understand why progressives don't like Uber. It's just made cities so much safer. It has transformed the economy. And it was mind-boggling to me because they literally thought New York became a safer city.
Wait, how did it make cities safer? By putting taxis out of business?
Taxis were unsafe for some reason. That there was some sort of.
Oh, that would never occur to me.
The line that Uber used to say was, "We're breaking up the taxi cartel." They said that in DC, the founders. So I think this sort of messaging is infusing, and it's in their circles, and we really, just as Republicans and Democrats don't know how to speak to each other, like the Trump people. I think that liberals and progressives there's just for the most part, there's just like a wall. Like, we operate in different circles, we speak a different language, and and some liberals think they're progressive, as you know, the people who have those signs out.
Yeah.
There's and that part of that is because the Democratic Party ignores all dissent and pushes us off of MSNBC. So they think that Rachel Maddow is progressive. So we got a lot of work to do.
I used to think that too.
I think she used to be a little bit more progressive, but she was a Republican, I think, too, at one point.
Yeah. Isn't that funny? That's the great transition of our time. It used to be the other way around, but now it's,
Yep, that's it. Thomas Frank, oh my God, we could do this for another hour. I have so many more questions.
I know, but we got to stop. I've got to answer that phone.
You got to answer the phone. I have to eat something. All right. You are free to exit the building, Thomas Frank. We're going to do some shout outs to everybody in the super chat who loved you, including my mother. She's so happy that you're on. But anyways, thank you very much, Thomas Frank. You can check out Thomas Frank's book, which is called The People Know, A Brief History of Anti-Populism. And of course, you can go back.
I'm very proud of it. I really like that book, by the way. It's my last book about politics, and I think in some ways my best.
But not your last ever, just like the most recent.
No, I'm going to write about other things. I've got a whole world out there waiting for me. So
what?
No. Yeah.
No, we need you. This is what we need you.
No. You got it, Nomi. It's all yours. You got it.
You have to give me all your books. I have to read all those books that I can't find anywhere in the library.
You don't have to. I summarized them for you.
I want to read Alfred's
It's all
books.
here. It's all in my. You just read my summary of them. You don't need any more than that.
I don't need a cliff notes. I want to go and read the transcripts. I was the crazy person who read those commission transcripts before I went on the Unity Reform Commission because I was like, I need to understand. Yeah, I'm straight up crazy. I was like, I see you, Jim Roosevelt. I know who you are. You think you're the grandson of FDR. I know who you are. You're the fixer. That's what they call you in the DNC.
Oh my God.
Yeah, that's a real thing. All right. Thanks, Thomas. Next time, I'm sure we'll have more to talk about.
All right. We shall talk soon.
All right. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Shout out to Dee Marie, who says the point of regarding righteousness is so insightful, and how they get all the well-off libs to cry about missing Obama. Spot on. Tick Todd CRC. Oh my God. Thank you for the love. What? I can't believe it. That's like, I have to go back and look at that number. I feel like that's not accurate. But anyways, thank you. And good work this week. And Thomas Frank, gracias, Nomiki. De nada. Jeff Petit, thank you for the love. Al Welski, thank you for the love. And he says, in appreciation of your commitment to keep the electorate informed, I couldn't see it any other way. This is way more fun than going on a cable news program. Kowalski from Nebraska, he's back. In red states, we should primarily as Republicans on local populist issues. At best, you make it. At worst, you tie up resources. That's smart. Make them bleed for every seat. Light the flame of progress and let it burn. You know, it would be interesting if we could create like a Lincoln Project for Republicans, and then we find some Republicans, like you said, to challenge those right-wing people and tie up their resources. Something to think about. Sounds like something like a Roger Stone would come up with. Just against us. Tony DeMeo, Thomas Frank is responsible for my enlightenment. Oh, I wish he had heard that. Oh, maybe he'll watch it again. Torches and pitchforks. Thanks for the love. Thanks, Thomas Frank. YouTube Left Media is the best. Thanks, Nomi. Where is my Nomi Don't Play That shirt? It's a 90s reference. I know. Thanks, Dorsey. I do remember that. And I think we should get that, actually. Thanks to everyone who's mixing it up in the live chat. Thank you to MIDI Doctors and Jules for working the algorithms. And huge thank you to our moderator, Chokin, for keeping the chat room troll-free. We don't need those right-wing trolls. We will see you tomorrow. We have Femme Friday. We're going to talk about Armenia. I'm actually going to pre-record that interview right now. We're going to talk about what's been going on there. And then we're going to have a great panel tomorrow where we discuss Bernie Sanders as labor secretary. And I am going to give my appeal to Bernie Sanders in regards to being labor secretary. So you definitely want to tune in live for that one. And if you haven't already, make sure to smash that like button and click subscribe and click those alerts. We will see you tomorrow, same time, same place.